Good day guys. In today's video we are going to be looking at how to write a dialogue. So you're sitting in your English classroom or perhaps in a test or exam venue, and your English teacher has given you the task of writing a transactional piece in the form of a dialogue. Today I'm going to be showing you exactly how to go about that and what you will need. First of all, when you buy an exam pad, there is a piece of cardboard at the back. So once all the paper is finished, this is what you're left with. I highly recommend that you write your name at the top here and have this laminated if you can. Then, for every test or exam that you write, you use this to press on. The nice thing about that is that you don't have to worry about all the unevenness of the desk, so your writing will be smooth, number one. And it's blank and laminated, so you can't write on it, and it's thin. So the teacher doesn't have to look through it like a book to check if you have any crib notes or anything like that. Then, you will also need at least one piece of blank foolscap, which your teacher will provide for you. Obviously you'll need one for planning and at least one for the final, depending if you need a rough draft as well. That will all be in the instructions. Then you will need a ruler. You will need at least 2 blue or black pens. The reason why I say 2 is just in case the one stops working or runs out of ink. You will need a pencil, and you will need a stapler. You will also need a watch, or if there's a clock in the classroom, all good, to watch your time and to make sure that you don't run out of time and not finish, because that will badly jeopardize your mark. Okay, so let's begin. Here is the topic. This is from a paper from last year. During the past few months, you have felt that one of your best friends has not been treating you fairly. For example, he has copied your homework on numerous occasions, and twice he's cancelled plans to hang out. Write the dialogue between you and your friend where you confront him about his behavior. You hope not to harm the relationship, as you have been good friends for years, but his careless and selfish behavior is not acceptable. Okay, if you need to read the topic more than once, feel free. If you need to highlight any words to make sure that you don't forget anything, also feel free to do that. Alright, obviously you're going to plan this on a separate piece of paper as planning, and then you're going to draw a line through it, but that's not the purpose of this video. We're just going to assume that that has been done. I have written an example of a response to this topic just to show you how we go about it. Okay, so you receive your piece of foolscap or line paper. Step 1, leave the top 2 lines open, so that the teacher can write a comment here and put the mark. Then you must provide a suitable heading such as this. So you go on the left hand side, what is this paper? It's transactional writing and it's a dialogue. Opposite that on the right hand side, your name. The left hand side, the date. If you use a monogram system and your teacher has a monogram, you put that there in the middle. And then maybe your class, for example 8B. You then rule off. It's very important that this ruler that you use is a full length ruler. Okay, leave a line. And now I put a 1 here because sometimes you get a number of topics. So this could have been the first option, but perhaps there were 3 options. So you want to show the teacher that this is topic number 1. So you put a 1 there. Right, now this first little bit, this first paragraph, you'll notice is written against the left hand margin. I haven't drawn a right hand margin here because this is a writing task, so the teacher doesn't need to add up marks on the right hand side. The first paragraph is what we call the context. In other words, it provides the reader with an example of what is happening at this stage. So we introduce to the characters, we know where they are, and we know roughly what the situation is. I have put here Benjamin Nelson, which is just names that I've made up. Okay, I've put Ben in brackets. I have to give the full name first. Once I've provided the full name, I can then use the shortened version in brackets. The version in brackets is the version that I use in the actual dialogue. Benjamin Nelson is upset with his best friend James Turner, their full name first, next after which referred to as James, for his recent aloof behavior towards their friendship. Aloof kind of means don't really care, distant. The bell for the end of the school day has just rung, and Ben runs up to James, who's walking down the stairs to the main entrance of the school. Okay, so this creates a picture in the reader's mind of who the characters are and where they are and what the situation is. Okay, very, very shortly, I've done that. This will contribute to your word count. Notice that I have not used any first person pronouns. Okay, I'm writing third person, and I'm writing in the present tense because a dialogue can happen at any stage. Think of it as a script to a movie. It can be acted out at any point and therefore must be written in the present tense. Also note that I haven't used any contractions. I've written words out in full because this is academic writing. So I could have written whose, that would be wrong. That would be colloquial language, so I've written who is. Once I've done that, I leave a line open. Then, using my pencil, I draw a left-hand margin, but on the page. In other words, this margin running here is ignored in a sense. I do not write the names in the provided margin. I write the names against the left-hand margin and create my own margin. Therefore, think about which name is the longest. So James, make the column wide enough to fit that name in comfortably, and then draw a very faint pencil line down to make sure that all your dialogue roughly starts at the same place. You don't want it starting at different places on the page. Okay. In fact, you can even rub out that line afterwards if you wish. James, where are you headed? This is what Ben is now saying. These are the words that Ben says. So essentially it's direct speech. However, we do not include any inverted commas or quotation marks in a dialogue. Once Ben has finished talking, we leave a line open. If the speaker changes, we must write his name in our made margin. So now Ben has finished talking, James is now going to talk. He says, "Hey dude, I'm going to the swimming pool. I have training at 3 p.m. Now, any form of slang must be avoided. However, if it is essential to your story, you may use slang, but put it in single inverted commas. The reason for that is because slang is not acceptable in formal writing. But because this is a dialogue, sometimes it's necessary to add to a character certain kind of characteristics. Okay? So for example, now I want to make the reader aware that James likes to use the word dude because that's just how he talks. Okay? So this word dude adds to my characterization of James. I haven't said I'm going, I've said I am going. The thing about a dialogue is that the way that you would speak to your friends is not necessarily what you should go by when writing a dialogue. The realism factor kind of gets left out in a sense because the way you speak to your friends is probably not the way that you need to write it, because you need to write without slang as far as possible, without colloquial language. Remember that. So it's a kind of a combination of making it realistic versus making sure that it is fitting for academic writing. James is now finished speaking, so I leave a line open and then we go back to Ben. Notice it's the name colon. Ben says, "Do you mind if I walk with you?" Leave a line. James says, "Sure. What is the matter?" Leave a line. Ben says, "I feel really uncomfortable for having this conversation, but I think it is necessary." Now, there is an action. I want to indicate to the reader that they're not doing what they were doing. You see here in the context, I said here that Ben runs up to James, who is walking down the stairs to the main entrance of the school. Here I've said, "Do you mind if I walk with you?" "Sure, what is the matter?" So this is hinting at the fact that they are now walking. But I want them to do something else. How do I do that? I leave a line open and I now write the action also against the margin that I've created. There's no speaker here because nobody's actually talking. That is Ben who spoke last. And to show that he's not saying this, I've left a line open. I now put in brackets the action. They both stop walking. James releases a big sigh before looking Ben in the eyes. Full stop, close the brackets. That's the end of the action that I want here. So I leave a line open. But now it's not James talking. James has not said a word since sure what is the matter. Ben said something. Now Ben is still talking. James hasn't said anything. Because Ben is written there, I don't need to put Ben here again because he's the same person. I only put another name if the speaker changes. So I don't put Ben here. I put, look, you are my best friend. We share so many good memories. We used to do everything together, but recently you have pushed me aside. Full stop. Now I've reached the end of the page, and I haven't reached the end of the dialogue. So now I go to my next page, and because I ended the previous page with no space at the bottom, but I want to show the teacher that I haven't forgotten to leave a line open, so I'll leave a line open there at the top. Now I'm going to put the other page here so that you can see. We ended off with Ben speaking. James still hasn't said anything. I want to show again that another action has taken place. So put in brackets, no name. James walks slowly to a nearby bench and sits down. Ben follows him and stands next to the bench. End of the action, leave a line open. Right, now James is finally going to say something. Okay, now I want to show exactly how James is saying this. So say for example now you are the director of a film and this is the script. You want to be able to tell your actors or actresses exactly how to kind of perform those lines, how to act them out. So there needs to be some form of direction. Okay, this must not be overused. You don't need to put this for every single line. It will be easy to figure out what or how somebody, how a character is speaking or responding most of the time. But sometimes you want to make sure that the audience knows exactly how that character feels. So here James says, you are right, dude. I have been a terrible friend. Now if I didn't put that there, you might think he was being sarcastic, and I wouldn't want that. So I put there empathetically to show that he has some remorse. Okay, he kind of feels sorry and regretful. Alright. Why is it ekali? It's an adverb because it must explain how he's talking. And how is he talking, which is a verb? How is he talking? Empathetically. Okay, so this is not an action. This is a description of how he's saying these words. So it doesn't get its own line. Right. So, and I don't put it here either. So I go James and then against the margin I've made, how he's speaking. So I could have said angrily, sarcastically, etc. Small letter. Then his actual words. You are right, dude. Again, I've used dude because it goes nicely with the fact that he called Ben dude earlier. It creates a character in a sense. It's not too one-dimensional. Okay. He says, I have been a terrible friend. Leave a line open because he's finished talking. Again, in action. James leans forward and rests his chin in his hands. You can imagine this scene playing out. Leave a line. Ben now speaks. Ben says, do not be so hard on yourself. I did not mean to make you... And then he gets interrupted. So we use a dash to show that that's an interruption, that he hadn't actually finished talking. So I don't have to say here, James interrupts Ben. Okay, that tells me that. James, and here's the interruption. No, Ben, I'm glad you have said it. I've been an absolute moron, and I'm sorry. Okay. Candidly means to be frank, okay, to be honest. In other words, he's certain about it. No, don't try and cover it up. You're right. Okay. Notice as well, if you say yes and a name, or no and a name, it's always yes or no, comma, name. Okay. If I say hi Ben, it would have been hi, comma, Ben, full stop. If I say goodbye Ben, it would have been goodbye, comma, Ben, full stop. Okay. Leave a line open. You get the picture. Okay, so you continue with the dialogue, blah, blah, blah. And then you get to your last line. You say, for example, Ben, I'm so glad that we had this talk. I shall see you tomorrow. Leave a line. Rule off. Make sure that you remember to rule off so that we know it is finished. And then what you will most likely be asked to do is to take your final copy, which is this one, your 2 pages. You will take your planning and you'll put it behind that. And then you will take the question paper and you put it right at the back. And then you make sure it's all nice and neat. And you take your stapler with staples and staple in the top left hand corner. And then you would obviously go and check your work to make sure that you haven't left anything out or made any mistakes, etc. And once you are finally happy with it, there you go. And you hand it in and hopefully get a really, really good mark.